We're going to start 1 minute early. This is the regular meeting of the St. Charles County Council. In lieu of an invocation this evening, we're going to have a moment of silence with respect to the victims of the school shooting last week. So I would ask everyone to please stand at this time and take your hats off. You may be seated. Next will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Cronin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now you may be seated. Please call the roll.
Councilman Cronin.
Here.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Here.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Here.
Councilman Hammond.
Here.
Councilman Hollander.
Here.
Councilman White.
Here.
The first item on the agenda is conditional use permit, bill number 5103. That is for a vote on final passage tonight. At the last meeting, we had a hearing on that. Is there any discussion before we, you want to read the
Bill number
title?
5103, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-10 for self-storage mini warehouses to the Martha A. Keevan Revocable Living Trust under agreement December 22nd, 1995, property owners and Best Box Storage applicant.
Any questions or comments before we call the roll and the vote? Okay, please read the bill and call the vote.
Bill number 5103, an ordinance granting conditional use permit CUP 22-10 for self-storage mini warehouses to the Martha A. Keevan Revocable Living Trust under agreement December 22nd, 1995, property owners and Best Box Storage applicant. Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
And the bill passes. Next, we have public comments. Just to remind you, if you filled out a card, your name will be called. You can come up to the podium, speak for 3 minutes. When the timer goes off, that will signal that your time has expired.
Thomas McHugh.
Good evening.
Good
I'd like to thank the council for the opportunity to speak. I have made copies of my comments available in hard copy for the members of the council and the clerk. I'd like to speak to some restrictions on RV parking as outlined in ordinance 405-4220 paragraph A and the need to revise them. First, I'm not advocating for the ability to park an RV in my driveway for extended periods. I currently pay $1,000 a year to park my RV in a storage lot in St. Charles County. My property is not conducive to long-term storage. I'm here tonight because the Nextdoor forum has on occasion had postings about RVs and boats, their negative effect on property values, and the need for code enforcement to protect those values. Negative comments tend to classify them as eyesores or rundown. I would counter that the responsible owners maintain that an RV that they purchase for anywhere between $35,000 and $500,000 are seeking convenience to make these assets more usable. The vehicles are registered with the Department of Revenue of the state of Missouri for use on public highways. I am addressing specifically paragraph 2 regarding the maximum length of the RV allowed as to not exceed 24 feet. I believe this is an unrealistic restriction if the unit can be parked in a manner not to cause obstruction to pedestrian or vehicular traffic. I personally have owned a non-commercial vehicle that exceeded 24 feet in length, and the last time I lived in St. Charles County actually canceled a real estate contract because the garage could not house my vehicle. Many of the RVs manufactured today exceed 24 feet, even for the most basic units. Current provisions of paragraph 3B of the ordinance allow for the parking of an RV for loading and unloading not to exceed 48 continuous hours within a week. This is a reasonable time, but the limit on length could impede owners of RVs from exercising that right to park, to load and unload. Frequently, since my unit is 29 feet in length, I actually load and unload on a storage lot out in Wentzville. It's extra trips on the road. That's more traffic on the road. I can't cool my refrigerator, so I can't put foodstuffs from my house that I purchased in St. Charles in the unit. I buy my food at my destination. Loss of revenue for St. Charles. The council, I'm sure, is aware of the tax revenue the county receives each year from the many RVs and boats that are owned by residents in the county. In 2021, when I purchased my truck and my trailer, I paid sales tax on $100,000. I currently pay yearly property tax on the vehicles, the truck and the trailer. Some people, sorry.
Your time is up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Michelle Shabani.
I'll try to take over where this gentleman left off. Same issue, talking about adjusting the length of the RV requirements as you have them now. Like you said, at 24 feet, none of the campers are that length anymore. There's also, the way I read it, an 8 feet height limitation. Even a small teardrop can exceed 8 feet. Maybe a pop-up camper would meet those requirements, but that's really about it. Storage in RV lots isn't really practical because with the catalytic converter thefts going on, you're looking at a $3,000 bill on a $200,000 camper, just because some of these people are getting catalytic converters stolen more than once a year when they're stored in recreational storage lots. Now, I understand some lots are not going to be able to support it. I live on 3 acres. I have driveways that can accommodate it. But having to have it completely concealed would mean I'd have to put a pole barn on my property, which is legal where I live, but I don't think my neighbors would enjoy seeing that. I mean, I think they enjoy my camper more than they would enjoy a pole barn being on my property. I did look at surrounding counties. St. Louis County and Jefferson County will allow any size as long as it's on a concrete pad and it is behind the plane of the house. Either behind the house, on a regular house. If you're on a corner lot, it can be on a separate drive from the other route. So that's St. Charles and Jefferson County both allow any length. Madison County will allow up to 38 feet as long as it's behind the plane of the house. Warren County, Jefferson County, I really couldn't find any restrictions other than, like, you can't live in it for more than 90 days unless you register it as a mobile home. So there's really no reason why St. Charles County would have these really restrictive laws on length and height when none of the surrounding counties are doing this. It's a financial burden to the owners. It's a stressful burden to the owners, worrying about whether you're going to come to the lot and find a homeless person's been living in your camper or your catalytic converter's been stolen, which completely ruins your trip that you've probably saved months to take, given the cost of gas. I really would like for all of you just to consider increasing the length. I understand there has to be restrictions on where it's parked and that it has to be a lot that can accommodate, but the current law is really restrictive compared to all the other counties. But thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments.
Grace and Justice.
Good evening. My name is Grayson Justice. I live in Harvester Road for most of my life. Looks like I'm the only one who dressed up for Halloween.
I did say it was optional last time, so.
Yeah. So as you can tell, I'm dressed as a character named Karen. If you don't know who Karen is, it's a person who is always right, because she is. And her famous catchphrase is, "I want to see your manager." So, 1 week until the election, and I've been hearing and watching all these meetings about the opponents who are disagreeing with the election company or the person who runs the elections and the machines. But I think it's the only thing that people who are really upset about these election machines and the company is they just don't like the results. They just don't like the results of the election. We have one party that complains and just moves on. We have another party that complains and goes to means like this every day, every year, saying this is unfair. Now, one day, one of the candidates was working on his signs because due to some unfortunate events, their signs was like pushing all the way back. Then one gentleman pulled up to the candidate, riding an ATV, something like that, holding a bow and arrow and pointing it to the candidate and says, "I want all of you Democrats out of my town." Is this really your party? The party of violence? We have a person break into this Nancy Pelosi's house in California and attempt suicide, assault to her husband, which he's now in the hospital for brain surgery. I find this ridiculous for a party who is all about conspiracy theories and being right all the time. This is not how the world works. You need to accept the election the way it is. And I want to thank Nancy for doing a moment of silence for the school shootings in St. Louis. One of the victims was my brother-in-law's mother, and I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Amber Crawford.
You're up.
My name is Amber Crawford. Our election authority has compromised our election judges' PII, personally identifiable info. In the light of the arrest of CONEC CEO Eugene Yeo, it's also confirmed that the CONEC employees have super administration or super user privileges to the entire application, and they can add, delete, modify data, changing anything in the whole application and the OS without any trace if they know how to cover their tracks. Identity theft is a very serious crime that our county officials don't seem to care. Why hasn't there been any investigations from our county officials to look into this? LA County did it. Detroit even banned poll pads from their elections. Why aren't we doing it? As an election worker, we provided our social security number and our driver's license number. The rest of the information, such as the bank info and our children's info, can be data mined by hackers. That's what hackers do, and it's very profitable. As an IT professional of 25 years, the easiest recommendation I could make regarding our election worker software is not to put PII data on the public cloud. Amazon AWS F5 load balancers have vulnerabilities. S3 buckets have vulnerabilities. The database has vulnerabilities. The list go on. Just put that information behind the SEC firewall. Don't let a third party hosting our election worker software, or stop using poll pads altogether. These are the lowest hanging fruits of securing our data. But SEC Kurt Barr has ignored to address any of my concerns. Also, I've asked a bunch of questions regarding the Modus Intech data, such as, and I have not heard any feedback from the EA's office. Are the elections workers' PII info secured? First of all, don't put it on the public cloud. Second, secure it with strong passwords and encryption. Third, encrypting the database. Fourth, rotating randomly generated password frequently. Fifth, providing audits in database apps. Are the application's OS security and network protocol patched regularly? Questions, and so on. This leads to my second question. Is Modus Intech software certified? I'm gonna venture to say no because I never got any feedback. Third is chain of custody. Are the Modus personnel following the chain of custody and provide access privileges only to on a need-to-know basis, or better yet, obfuscate PII info to safeguard election workers' anonymity? Third, are the PII of voters, as opposed to the election workers, secure? The ePulse program must be inquiring about voters' registration status.
Thank you, ma'am.
It's way too short. If you really want to know about identity theft and take it
Thank you,
seriously.
ma'am. Your time is up.
Andrew C.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name.
Andrew,
Okay. Your last name?
C.
C? Okay, go ahead.
First, I was just, these lovely people, they have way more concerns and things to address than I do. Alls I was really coming for was wondering why it's been so hard for me to get a complaint form or just simple help from ringing the doorbell to knocking on it. I've been met with nothing but aggression and negligence from this man here. He's been trying to intimidate me out of this office
I'm
from day one.
having a little trouble hearing you. Maybe if you
Yes,
address
ma'am.
the microphone?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So he's been intimidating me and trying to push me out of this office since I've been walking in here 3 weeks ago. I was suggested to come up here and talk about security protocols down in administrative offices. I was 5 words away from walking out of the room from the assistant taking my information when he hangs up a phone and comes rushing out to step in my face to a point where I had to put my hand up and stop him from coming at me and touching me. So I'm just wondering, this guy here, I hope he's the most awesome multitasker because I see people up here talking and he's just reading and looking out the door and stuff. So I'm just wondering, you know, the level of neglect that I'm getting just for trying to get a complaint form or to talk to a supervisor for 3 weeks. I can only imagine what you're really going to do for these people and their actual concerns, you know. So that is about it. I was just wanted to kind of see how it goes here and then kind of express my opinion on that one. It's going to take me a lot more than 3 minutes to actually concern what this building needs. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Arnie Dienoff.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, County Public Advocate. First of all, I'd like to announce that I filed with the Secretary of State to run as a writing candidate for State Auditor on November 8th. The second issue is you as council voted in closed session to pay out $850,000 for sexual harassment from David Todd, the former chief of police, that I brought those allegations to the administration's attention years ago, and it went without being investigated properly. Wow, our money is making a windfall for a great bonus and life savings for 2 employees. Holly, I don't know how to pronounce her name, Magdziarz, $455,000 by the county. Megan E. Murray, who is also an associate county counselor, $350,000, and you kept her on the payroll for 8 or 6 more months at $50,000 plus health benefits. I saw firsthand and observed the sexual harassment by David Todd, especially when he said to the SWAT team, "Boys, this is Holly, get a good look at her, make sure it's not yours," because she was pregnant. She asked, David Todd asked another associate county counselor about her sex life and about getting breast implants. It's pretty sad. The lawsuits keep piling and adding up. Steve Elman and Joanne Lycum, guess what? It's not your money. Stand up for these employees and put a crush to it. The county jail needs Missouri flags to be flown once again, our Missouri and county flags. Bill number 5101, I ask that you vote it down. It's another fee, another tax to our airport. $67,000 for the NADA JD Auto Value Book. It just doesn't make sense why we're spending $67,000. That's on the consent agenda. Also on the consent agenda is the election authority printing and mailing. Why not do it in-house with Mary Engler's staff? She has a full-time print center and a full-time mail room, and they could buy the software pretty cheaply to do a pre-sort and save taxpayers money of over $65,000 that's being paid to another entity. Just doesn't make any sense to me. And finally, another tax increase on the November 8th ballot. I'm here to educate the county. I'm opposed to Proposition Paramedic on the November 8th ballot that will increase real estate and personal property tax levies by 30% of the current tax levy. We have a duplication of paramedic firefighters and paramedic ambulances responding to the same calls for service. For medical calls and you have paramedic firefighters, and then you have an ambulance with 2 paramedics. Now they want 3. I can't get into the other aspects, but I'm
Your
asking
time
that
is
we
up.
vote down this ludicrous tax increase. Vote no.
Thank you. Any further comments?
No further
All right,
comments.
thank you. Next, we have oral report from the County Executive. Mr. Elman, good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. With regard to the stealing of information, Joanne has some information she received just today from the Fusion Center. John then will go ahead and tell you what the county government has been doing to try to find out if any of our people have been hacked. And then John will also give you a short presentation just on the main facts about the water situation with the city of St. Charles. I told him to keep it short, and if you have questions, he'll answer it. We'll be here, take as long as you want.
All right, thank you.
So Joanne, do you want to
Okay,
start?
Mr. Greisview. Thank you.
Huh?
Do you want me to go first, or?
Oh, okay, sure. I'm sorry. I was having a little trouble.
So it's actually very brief. We asked some of the regional intelligence officers a couple weeks ago to look into what they could find out. What they've been able to find out so far from from LA County is that all notifications have been made to any government in which there has been data that was lost. So we have no notification from them. They told us that that means that they aren't aware of anything. We also did not have, Matthew Seeds did some investigation. We never uploaded people's full social security numbers. So that was not part of what we used Connect for, according to what our information shows.
Great, thank you. That's a relief, I'm sure, to everyone. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Greisview, this is concerning the city water situation that has been in the news, and many of you have, I believe, heard about. So, thank you, Mr. Greisview.
All right, and they are gonna, there it is. So the council, I know you're aware of the Elm Point well field. But many folks in St. Charles County, when you talk about the Elm Point well field, they really don't know where it is, even though most of us in the city of St. Charles know Elm Point Road is just down the hill, closer to the Mississippi River. When you talk about a well field, they're like, okay, we drilling for oil? I mean, this is St. Charles County is not known for wells, but this is drinking water. So I wanted to hit upon that. And let's see. All right, so where is the Elm Point well field? Elm Point Road is, as I said, just down the hill from here. Elm Point Road runs between Zumbel and Elm. It is parallel to 370, so that circle in red is the Elm Point well field. And by well field, this is where the city of St. Charles has 7 of its drinking wells. 7 is the total number of wells that they have drilled for the drinking water production for the residents in the city of St. Charles. The water treatment plant is located there just off of Elm Street. If you drive up Elm Street, it's off to the right-hand side. And I'm going to back up here. It's going to be short. There's going to be 3 things that I hope the council gets from this presentation. And if you're listening at home, 3 things. And one, the very first one is the most important. Is the drinking water of the city of St. Charles that we drink today out of the tap safe? The answer to that's yes, it is safe. The second point will be what happened. So we'll explain a little bit what happened, what's the contamination beyond what is the well field. And 3 is, I think, the most important thing that we're making this presentation for is what can the citizens of St. Charles County, what can you as a council person do based upon where we're at in this process of discovery and process in the regulatory of the site. So those are the 3 things. So I'm going to ask you again at the end of the presentation, what were the 3 things? Water safe, what happened, what can I do? Elm Point well field. It is located, if you know where Fountain Lakes is, There's a lot of citizens in the city of St. Charles have walked the trails around Fountain Lakes, and you see kind of this little pedestal with some metal, and it looks kind of industrial, and it's kind of neat. That is a well that's been drilled about 80 to 100 feet deep. It's pumping water, millions of gallons of water out of basically the sand, alluvial aquifer of the Mississippi River that then is treated and is distributed to the tap water system. This map here shows you kind of in location. You can see Elm Point Road. You can see Missouri Route 364. Kind of that vertical line going up the middle is Houston Road. I also put this on here because you can see a lot of people say, well, we've known about that for decades. They've been talking about that since the 60s. There's a Superfund site down there. And the answer is yes, 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 you're correct. This is different though. So that cluster of wells and that red box you see kind of in the bottom left corner, and there's a dotted line, that is the Superfund site that's been known about for decades. It's been under monitoring and remediation for years. It's a FinDet site. Now, if you go further up, more towards the middle, you see all these little lines and little spots there. That is an Ameren substation where they, in about 20 years ago, 2005, discovered that there was some additional contamination. You can see around there a bunch of other wells, and those are the city's drinking wells. That's, in summary, is what makes this such a critical matter. Here's a close-up. So on the right-hand side, I just kind of want to make it so you get that visual. So you had Fountain Lakes Park. You can see the lakes and the trails around Fountain Lakes. Kind of right where the 4 is on that map, you can kind of see an area that's kind of more rocky looking. That's the substation. So that's where all those major transmission lines come into the transformers there. And that facility, there was a release of contamination. The numbers on that map, so you see 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you gotta go down way to 8, then back up to 9 and 10. Those are the city's public drinking wells. Those are the wells that were drilled to provide the citizens of St. Charles drinking water. You can see how close well 4 is to the site. You can see how close well 5 is. Well 4 has been turned off since 2005 when they first discovered contamination at the site. Well 5 has been also turned off. Well 6 now has been turned off, and well 8 has been turned off. So the red dots in the map on the right-hand side, 4, 5, 6, and 8. 4 of the city's 7 wells now shut off because there's been contamination found in those wells. Leaving the city really reliant upon well 7, 9, and 10. And so that's really the important part of what happened is that through the years there's contamination that got into the groundwater through maintenance activities, potentially at the substation. It's spreading into these wells. The cities do, the first question was, is my drinking water safe? The answer is yes. How do we know that? The city's sampling the wells. They sample the water. When they detect contamination, they shut them down. The other point of sampling is the city's sampling the water as it comes into their treatment plant. So sample it once, hey, it's still clean, we're leaving that water running. Sample it twice, it's at the plant, still clean, we're gonna treat that plant water and get it out to the public. And now they're gonna be sampled a third time, thanks to St. Charles County, we're sampling it at the tap. So this information, this is a third sampling to ensure the water you drink out of your fountain or your tap at home is safe in the city of St. Charles. But it does not change the situation that we have 4 wells that cannot be used. Now, the interesting thing about this is that last year, the EPA and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources prepared what they called a record of decision. And in that document, they lay out the responsible parties and what needs to be done by the responsible parties to clean up the site so that the site can be reused to its fullest and best use. And one of the things in that document that creates the county government create distress, and why we're here speaking today and what we're hoping the public will get out of this is that one of the steps that they said within that document is that it's okay for the city to turn on well number 4. It's okay for the city to use well number 5. The city's being too precautious.
and this is in the document, because you can take the clean water from number 10, and when it's mixed with the slightly contaminated water in well number 5, and then goes through the treatment plant, by the time it gets to the tap, the contamination level will be well below what they consider acceptable drinking water standards. Well, the city of St. Charles has said, no, that's not acceptable. We are not going to take, that's an unacceptable risk. Even though it may result in drinking water below that, for that contaminant, below the standard, it shouldn't be contaminated at all, because it wasn't contaminated before the contamination got placed in the ground by someone else. And that other responsible party needs to make us whole. That's where the city's saying, Ameren U in this case, which operates the substation, needs to replace the drinking water wells so that they are made whole and they can, essentially don't have to worry about contamination in that drinking water. So that's what's happened. This, just wanted to provide that visual. Once again, this is well number 4. You can see the substation right there. Well number 5, clearly within the view of the substation. And well number 6 is on the other side of 370. If I go back up, no, excuse me. You'll remember that well number 6 is the one right there above the OU4, right across 370. And so you can see even that one, which the city had discontinued use this year, has had to be shut off. And so that's the concern of what the press release was last week and why there's been such a push. Now, so the third item was, what can I do? What can you do? What can anyone listening to this presentation today can do? We are in a critical point. So the record of decision, which creates that remediation plan, what needs to be done by the responsible parties, was approved last year. It's an approved document. The next step is for the court system to issue a consent decree, basically saying, okay, we've reviewed it, we've heard from the public, and now this is final. It sets the course of what's going to happen to remediate the site. The deadline for public comments is November 3rd. So we have a few days to get the word out to everyone who will listen. One, take time to understand that the well field on Elm Point that serves the city is a vital piece of critical public infrastructure that we need to protect. 2, if they can go to the city's website, they can learn more. That was as it slips through, that was the last piece of that. Go to the city's website. They'll provide the full detail and some other information for you. It also provides a link on there to the Department of Justice email, which is the point that they're receiving these public comments. And so that's why I'm asking everyone in this chamber, and I'm asking my friends, my neighbors, my golf buddies, people I go to church with, my wife's friends, kids, schoolmates, get the word out. And it's very important that this consent decree does not get approved in its current form. We need them to reopen the remediation plan, relook and answer some of these questions about why are we still seeing contamination further on the site. Now we'll just go back up a little bit here one more time. So this one here, the red dots. Ameren and within the document itself, and I'm going into a little more detail here, they did what they call a groundwater pump and treat system right within the substation. So right in that little gray area, they have a small well that's pumping out about 35 gallons a minute, and they're treating the groundwater. And right in that small area, they've been seeing really good success. And even some of the wells surrounding it, they've been seeing, and last year on the basis of the ROD document, they saw some really good results that the contamination levels were decreasing. There's always two sides of the story. So Ameren's side is that we have made some treatment efforts. We're actually done quite a bit of work in showing how we reduce the contamination. However, since the ROD was approved in last year, the sampling wells, so if you go, all those little PZs, those are piezometers that are used to sample the groundwater, we're starting to see the contamination levels once again increase. And that had a lot of people scratching their head of why. Why is it increasing? It doesn't matter. I have my thoughts. I'm sure someone else that's looked at the data has their thoughts. It doesn't matter why. The fact of the matter is that the contamination levels in those spots are, it's not just been increasing one sample, but multiple samples. And that's new data that was not considered when the ROD was approved. And so that new data is providing a whole bunch of questions of why. And until those whys are answered, the consent decree doesn't need to be approved. And that's the basic message of what of what's going on out there, is that we need answers and we need additional information before the consent decree is approved. So I'm asking you to do the same. Ask your wife, your friends of your friends, church mates, golf mates, whoever. Let's get a bunch of responses out by November 3rd to the Department of Justice so that until we get some additional answers, the consent decree is not approved. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I thought there was an effort to get them to extend the comment period by 30 days.
There is, and
But
I've
that
heard that
hasn't.
it has been.
It has been.
But that's not been, I haven't seen that official. I don't know, Joanne, have you, we've heard it.
Rory checked today about 3 o'clock, and there's nothing on the record yet.
So that may not be the case, then, that it's being extended. So that's why the impetus is to act and the urgency to act now.
And I talked to the head of Ameren last week. He said they were not opposed to that. So
They weren't opposed to it.
it should happen, but I don't understand why it hasn't.
Yeah. Mr. Hannon.
The other item is very critical, is that even if they get an extension, and another thing could be, well, let's do some more field investigation. Well, 6 months can go by really, really quick. The city is still down to 3 drinking wells for its residents. Now, they have a backup plan that they can buy a water.
We're already buying water, aren't we?
They are buying some water,
Yeah.
and they can buy some more. That will add, that obviously will result in higher costs to the city government that normally would be passed on and probably would be passed on to the consumers of
Yeah.
water there.
Yeah.
The contamination 9 and 7, it's been found as high as at piezometer 11, within, I think, about 500 feet of that well. Number 9 is a high protection well, one of their biggest production wells that they have. One of the theories is because the rivers are so low when we're in a drought,
Yeah.
basically it's like that sponge. When you start sucking water out of the sponge, when it starts getting more and more dry, you pull that water in from further and further away. Well, as this aquifer gets more and more dry, as we're under this drought, and those wells just keep on pumping and pumping and pumping, it's going to pull that contamination closer and closer to those wells. So time is critical.
John, do we know what the contaminant is? Is it from a leaking?
Yeah, so it was a degreaser that was used as part of the maintenance of the transformers, TCE. And it has broken down, the TCE over time breaks down into 2 things, cis-1,2,3 dichloroethane and vinyl chloride. Both of them are carcinogens. And underneath the substation, the levels of those 2 chemicals are at concentrations that are very high, or significantly high.
I think I heard the statistic that 1 in 5 people have an increased chance of getting cancer if they consume these chemicals that are in the water supply. I don't know how much or over what time, but these are serious chemicals.
You are correct. They are serious chemicals, and like I said, so that the urgency is, November 3rd appears to be our deadline. Let's get the comments in and make sure that we can get all these questions answered before the final consent decree is
Mr.
approved.
Cronin.
Years back when I was an alderman and we worked on the water tower in St. Paul, we had situations where people's water from their private wells, one way they would be perfectly clear, next day come out look like orange soda. Because that water in that aquifer does migrate. And
Yeah.
we're talking to DNR, they say it can migrate miles. So what you're saying about the Mississippi River being low makes perfect sense. But another aspect to look at this, I looked at the aerials of this, and I've flown over this quite a few times too. This isn't very far from Westlake. I reached out to Westlake moms. I've kept in contact with Don Chapman through them from the years, and asked them that when all this information became public, had those chemicals Is that something they've encountered in the leachate of the West Lake? And they have. So my concern would be this, okay, is even with the Ameren site, that's not 100% positive, not 100% sure that all that contamination is coming from the Ameren site. I think the long-term solution is St. Charles needs to pull their water out of the Mississippi River upstream of the industrial area of St. Charles. So I hope that gets out somehow or the other.
And so that's part of, I think, that you hear is EPA and DNR are talking about, could there be another source of this contamination? And there, that's obviously needs to be a question that needs to be answered. But if you do look at, and one of the things was that the site we talked about the Superfund site, could some of that contamination be migrating that way? And I'm going to go back up one more slide. If you look at the Superfund site, the funded site, the primary groundwater route on that, if you looked at that map there, is like this. It's going to the northeast. And if you look at the Superfund site, the funded site, all to the northeast, you have all these monitoring wells that they've been sampling. So they have a really good information about the chemicals that they're finding and a long history of the migration of that plume, all in that northeast direction. One of the fundamental problems that we pointed out, the county pointed out to the city as well as in our response, is that if you look at the Ameren site and you look to the northeast, that predominant direction, what don't you see on that map? You don't see any monitoring wells. The monitoring wells are to the north, what I'm going to call west, not in the predominant direction of your groundwater flow. That's a significant question of why is there no wells there. If you look between the Ameren site and well 10, which is immediately to the east of there, there's only one sample point, and it's within basically 30 to 40 feet of the well.
Can you test a sample from Riverside Park down by Hooster and also maybe County Airport and see if those chemicals are detectable in those?
Yeah, so when we built Riverside, we have a well there that we have there. And so we went through the full process of sampling both the shallow groundwater as well as the deep aquifers and ran the whole gamut, and we didn't see any of these chemicals at that site.
They tested for those specific chemicals?
Yeah, we did a full scan. So, I mean, there's each of these sites, in both the Findon site and the Ameren site, they have similar chemicals in them, but it's kind of like when you mix drinks together. They're not all the same. They're different ratios and this and that. That's what you see here. There's clearly a fingerprint for both of these sites, and at least what's showing up in the wells that the city has around there, that 4, 5, 6, and 8, admits the fingerprint profile of what they see with the Ameren subsite. So that's why the city has come to that conclusion. It's based on that scientific data. Any other questions? Nothing to lead the day with such
Bad news.
great news but the key was, number one, the water we're drinking today is safe. And the city's making efforts of sampling at the wellheads, sampling at the treatment plant, and the county is sampling the tap water. And so with those safeguards, we feel good to be able to, that everything's being done to ensure that the water that's coming out of the faucet is safe. If some reason that changes, there's a plan to buy additional water, but that doesn't fix the underlying situation that someone else contaminated the well field, and that party should be responsible to make the city whole so that they can produce water within the city for its residents. And that's what we're hoping that opening up the record decision and modifying that will allow that to occur.
Thank you.
No problem.
Very important information.
Need to be a city resident to comment, or is it open to everybody across the county?
No, it's obviously it's open up to anyone. You do not need to be a city resident, and I appreciate that question because I think it's an important one. I think having public infrastructure, whether it be a road or whether it be public water or whether it be another utility, it's important to the whole county. So what happens in the city of St. Charles is important to the residents of St. Peters, O'Fallon, Garden Prairie, Defiance, and Wentzville. So if you're a resident in St. Charles County, I urge you, fill out the form. Let's make our comments so that we get this opened up.
Madam Chairman, I do think when people do comment, it's very important that they do give the basis of their comment, though. And while they certainly don't have to live here, to be able to tell the EPA you're regularly in the city, utilizing vendors, perhaps restaurants on Main Street that are using water, or are drinking water, from a tap within the city, those are important things to establish why you have a comment coming in.
Even if it's just to come to this meeting twice a month.
Could an out-of-state visitor also have merit in this?
Okay.
Sir, we don't allow.
I'm sorry, go
questions
ahead.
from
I'm
the
sorry, Mr. Allen, repeat your comment.
My comment is, even if it's just to come to this meeting,
Yes.
that you're in the city.
We have
and-
bottled water, though, so we're safe, I guess, huh?
I just want to add, the only thing I want to add is that when the city brought this to us 2 weeks ago, we had Rory and Joanne, and I had 3 attorneys in the office, and we
Yeah,
understood
yeah.
all about record of decision. When the city started talking about costing the taxpayers $40 million, our CPA was all over that. But we're just thankful we had an engineer in the room who could actually explain all
Yes,
these issues to us. And I took the whole record of decision home the next night and read it, and came back and really was able to bring us up to speed quickly. So thanks for that,
We
John.
appreciate that. Okay, thank you. Okay, so any other comments you wanted to make, Mr. Allen? Okay. Just for 1 second, I want to just depart a little bit from the consent agenda because I don't want to move to take something off. I had a gentleman ask me this evening something about the bid for the printing of the election printing and mailing. I know Mr. Barr isn't here, but Mr. Parkinson, I think, is here, supposedly. Is Mr. Parkinson here?
Yeah, he's in the back.
Oh, hey, Mr. Parkinson, how are you? Okay, all right. The question that someone raised to me was,
Mark, why don't you come on up?
was whether or not we would accept a contract from someone out of state. But I looked at the bid on this particular item. It looks to me like there were 3 bids. 2 of them were from local area people, and one was from a firm in Arlington, Virginia. It looks to me like what you're recommending is that we take the bid from Input Technologies, which is
What I
a...
understand from Director Barr, we're going to continue the contract from Input Technologies for another year.
Yeah, and where are they located, that
St.
company?
Louis.
St. Louis, okay, that was the question. So generally in bidding for these kinds of things, you send out a request for a bid. We don't know who's going to bid, but
Correct.
hopefully we do try to do business with local entities as long as they fill all of the requirements for our needs.
Absolutely.
Okay, just
Absolutely.
checking on that. Okay, thank you.
We try our best. Thank you.
That was my question. All right, thank you. Okay, so then on the consent agenda, are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The consent items are approved. Moving on to bills for final passage. The first bill is 5104.
Bill number 5014, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts to RF Riverfront District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts per application RZ 22-12.
If there are no questions or comments, please read the bill. You have a
There's no
a comment?
controversy regarding this. Okay, so I'm aware of.
All right, yeah, I haven't heard any either. Would you please read the bill and then call the roll?
Bill number 5104, an ordinance amending the zoning district map of the County of St. Charles, Missouri by rezoning land from A Agricultural District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts to RF Riverfront District with floodway and floodway fringe overlay districts per application RZ 22-12. Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes.
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
Councilman Cronin?
Yes.
And the bill,
Councilman Brazel?
I'm sorry, the bill passes. Bill number 5105.
Bill number 5105, an ordinance amending the rates and charges to be collected at the St. Charles County Regional Airport Smart Field.
Any questions or comments?
I have a couple comments.
Yes, Mr.
Just so we're just clear about it, this is a 3 cent per gallon fee on aviation gas. It costs $5.90 a gallon right now, and that money's used to upgrade the fueling facilities at the airport. I was at the airport Saturday for the open house. They've done a great job restoring that after the flood. And I just want to remind people that that is a former Navy training facility. In times of national emergency, it could become again a training facility. So we need to keep that thing going. It's also has it's a research facility for Boeing's on the property. I saw a lot of kids there with STEM training with the EAA, which is a youth organization that teaches kids about aviation. And the Commemorative Air Force down there does a wonderful job preserving our history from World War II and other wars. So money invested in that airport is money well spent. And this small fee would just continue to keep the upgrades going in that airport. So I'm supportive of it.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, please read the bill and call the roll.
Bill number 5105, an ordinance amending the rates and charges to be collected at the St. Charles County Regional Airport Smart Field. Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes.
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Yes.
The next bill is bill number, the bill passes, 5106. Mr. Elam.
She's going to call it first.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Bill number 5106, an ordinance setting the 2023 rates for group medical insurance benefits with Aetna Life Insurance Company, Davis Vision, and self-insured dental insurance benefits for county employees, elected officials, and retirees, and extending Aetna Life Insurance Company for 2023.
Madam Chairwoman, I would move that we amend Bill 5106 with substitute Bill 5106.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The amendment then carries. Would you please read the title?
I got some,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I got questions
Sure,
about
go ahead.
Have you received any complaints from employees that some of their prescriptions are not being filled under our new medical?
I have not.
Dave, we haven't, and through finance or, I haven't heard anything to that effect, no.
Well, I've heard some from some employees, and I don't know what's going on, but evidently they're saying it's not covering a lot of medication that used to be approved, so I appreciate if you'd look into that.
Dave, do you know if it's the mail subscription service or if it's at the pharmacy?
It's pharmacy. And they talked to,
Have they talked to Samantha or anybody at HR?
I know they talked to Edna, and Edna said, well, there's nothing they could do about it, so.
Dave, if you could have those concerns forwarded to me, I'll make sure that Ed Noonan looks into it. Networks as they are, dealing with chains and all of that, things can get lost in translation, so we'll be happy to look at that for you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll have that person
Yeah.
contact you.
Yeah, have it sent to me, please.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I think we then did pass the fact that we were doing the amendment, so I'm going to ask you to please read the title then and call the roll on the amended bill.
Substitute Bill number 5106, an ordinance setting the 2023 rates for group medical insurance benefits with Aetna Life Insurance Company, Davis Vision, and self-insured dental insurance benefits for county employees, elected officials, and retirees, and extending Aetna Life Insurance Company for 2023. Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
Councilman White.
Yes.
Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes. Substitute Bill 5106 passes. Next bill for passage is 5107.
Bill number 5107, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget as adopted by ordinance 21-096 as amended to create a new bureau of the Office of Chief of Police Division of the Police Department of St. Charles County.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, please read the title and call the roll.
Bill number 5107, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget is adopted by ordinance 21-096 as amended to create a new bureau of the Office of Chief of Police Division of the Police Department of St. Charles County. Councilman Hollander?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
Councilman Cronin?
Yes.
Councilman Brazel? Councilman Elam?
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider?
Yes,
Councilman Hammond?
Yes.
and the bill passes. 5108.
Bill number 5108, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, approved by ordinance number 21-096 as amended, for the St. Charles County Department of Human Resources for a change in title for Human Resource Generalist 2 to a total compensation manager, and amending section 115.710 concerning the Personnel Administration Plan, and for the addition of an Assistant Prosecuting Attorney 3 position for the St. Charles County Department of the Prosecuting Attorney.
Any comments or questions? Please read the title and call the roll.
Bill number 5108, an ordinance amending the 2022 budget of the ordinances of St. Charles County, Missouri, approved by ordinance number 21-096 as amended, for the St. Charles County Department of Human Resources for a change in title for Human Resource Generalist 2 to a total compensation manager, and amending section 115.710 concerning the Personnel Administration Plan, and for the addition of an Assistant Prosecuting Attorney 3 position for the St. Charles County Department of the Prosecuting Attorney. Councilman White.
Yes.
Councilman Cronin.
Yes.
Councilman Brazel. Councilman Elam.
Yes.
Councilwoman Schneider.
Yes,
Councilman Hammond.
Yes.
Councilman Hollander.
Yes.
and the bill passes. Bills for introduction. I just wanted to point out that we have one bill for introduction tonight, and that's 5109. Bill number 5110, amending Chapter 205, Animal Regulations, is not going to be able to be on the agenda today. It was unattached and wasn't provided to the registrar within 24 hours in advance. So that bill then will be introduced at the next council meeting, which is November the 14th. So the bill for introduction then is bill number 5109.
Bill number 5109, requested by Robert Myers, sponsored by Nancy Schneider. An ordinance authorizing execution of an agreement relating to St. Charles County's Urban County Community Development Block Grant Program, or Urban County CDBG Program, namely a 2022 subrecipient agreement between St. Charles County and the City of St. Peters to operate and run the city's CDBG programs and services.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion? Okay, then that bill will be voted on the next council meeting. Is there any action on any tabled bills to be removed from the table? Okay, hearing none, then that will conclude the items on the agenda. Are there any announcements or miscellaneous matters?
Be safe on the way home and watch out for trick-or-treaters.
That's true.
Excuse me, could you just announce our budget work sessions?
About what?
The budget work sessions on your
Oh, the
notes
budget
there?
work sessions. Okay. Did we? Oh, yeah. I knew we were going to have those. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah, the budget work sections are going to be held on the following dates. The council meeting on November 14th and 28th, and also on December 5th. So there'll be 3 work sessions. Those will commence at 5:30 with the regular agenda starting then at 7 o'clock. Public is invited, of course, to attend the work sessions. Anything else on that? Any other comments? Okay.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, happy Halloween.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Let's go.